in here, I think in 1990 or even before then. In those days, we were very busy building Navy ships for Abu Dhabi, so it was a great experience in the true sense.
And when was that? With around
88, 89. My first jobs was working together with our team on Navy ships for the UAE Navy.
And you know, how important is this whole the Gulf region for Lürssen?
It has shifted. We still do some defense work, but especially the UAE has been very good to us as clients. We have built some very prominent yachts, as you know, Azam, one of them, Topaz, another one. We have more under construction. It's a very important region because it has a good demand for large yachts for us and very good customers.
Yeah, and you know, like one of the reasons the summer was the Gulf Superyacht Summit was created to attract more yachts to the Gulf and to create a winter destination here. How, in your view, can the Gulf attract more super yachts? And have you seen the change already in the let's say the last 5-10 years?
It has changed definitely. I think currently we are experiencing a boom for other reasons, but the critical part to really make this region attractive is, and it has been discussed this morning many times over, it offers a lot of interesting destinations within the region. Not only the UAE, but Oman is a beautiful cruising ground. Doha was mentioned earlier, Saudi Arabia, Neom, and the whole Red Sea coast. All of this offers a lot of attraction in a very focused area. And at the same time, a place like the UAE also offers a lot of attractions on shore. So it's not like, okay, we got beautiful waters, we got great diving, but hey, we got fantastic museums, we got great restaurants, we got fun parks and everything. So I think the whole region offers a fantastic package, and that is what will attract and has attracted more yachts to come in.
Yeah, no, agree. And just recently, ME92, Alcea Marine and Pinot Marine has announced their plans to build a Refit facility in Dubai. And Damen Shipyards is also active in the region with the shipyard. Sunreef is going to build a shipyard. Have you also looked at this region to do, you know, establish something with Lürssen here, or is Germany the main focus?
The type of yachts we're building requires a lot of infrastructure. You look at the traditional yacht builders, and it doesn't matter if it's North or South Europe, we are relying on a huge number of sub-suppliers. And especially in the new building sector, we would have to bring not only a shipyard, but the huge network of suppliers. And that is always something that has put an early stopper on the ideas of moving new build production to this other parts like Germany. With regards to maintenance, we always look at it, but it would only make sense as part of a wider network. And IC obviously has a vision, and I'm sure with ME92 they found the right partner for the maintenance.
Yeah, and well, we just had talked about Bernard on screen, and a panel about, you know, fuels, so the energy challenge. And last year, Lürssen, was it last year or maybe a year and a half during our Lürssen Live? It was that you announced
last year, pandemic times.
Pandemic times, yeah. Last year you announced the first project with a fuel cell. Has that increased the interest from other clients in the technology?
It certainly has increased the interest. The biggest problem, and again it was discussed in the session earlier, is how reliable are these new systems? And a lot of projects are worked on. Lorenzo talked about the pilot projects. We see a lot of interest, but we also see hesitation okay, and wait till the first yacht with a new system is in the water. And I can see that we have a lot of discussions with clients who want to go that way, but the real jump in hard interest and I think in constructions will come once people see a first yacht with a sustainable system with practical use. It's not the question of putting something on a yacht that looks good. I mean, you know, put something there that has no practical value. Okay, I can light the owner's stateroom for 6 hours. And I think what they're looking for is sustainable systems with pragmatic use. Like, we have this fantastic owner who listened to the presentation, very likes technology, and he said, look, these are the conditions. If you can meet them, I'll share the cost. Which I, for the shipper is great, because not only do you have the first installation, but you have an owner that at least partially is paying for the cost. So, and I think once we see a yacht in the water performing, that will jumpstart a lot of this development.
Yeah. And how important was the Paxal project in this process? Did that already give you a massive head start?
Nobody knows which direction the technology will move. We talked about hydrogen, methanol. EU talks about ammonia, which has other problems. Nuclear. At this point in time, we cannot exclude any technology. It looks as if for the midterm future, methanol will make the race to practical use. A good indicator is the commercial shipping industry. Maersk has ordered 19 very large container ships based on methanol combustion engines. And they signed, I think just recently, the deal was 10 billion with Spain to produce methanol. They have a similar deal with Egypt. So it looks like methanol will be, for all practical purposes, for the midterm at least, the solution that we believe in, and a combination of a methanol combustion engine and a methanol fuel cell, because they do cater for different profiles, most likely will be the case to reach, if we're able to get green methanol, the zero emission yacht by the end of the decade.
Yeah. And when do we expect that we will see a zero carbon emission superyacht? Will it always remain a dream, or is that 5 years, 10 years, or?
I'd say by the end of the decade, we should be there. Things always take longer than we think. We have the delivery that we have is N24, beginning of 25. If a client then says, yeah, I want to go zero emission based on that technology, then we're almost at the end of the decade purely by delivery. So I think a realistic goal really is before the end of the decade there should be a sizable yacht with zero emissions.
Yeah. Is it would you say it's easier on bigger boats or more difficult? Because you have more space, I guess, on bigger boats.
Well, as the gentleman from Tilburg pointed out, yachts never have enough space. And I think my colleague from San Lorenzo pointed out that, it takes up space more than normal space. A bigger yacht, on bigger yachts, the cost factor is possibly, in relative terms, less painful to go zero emission or very much reduced emissions. So I think that is making it slightly easier. And yes, the question of space is a valid question. So I think for very small yachts, the compromises a client would have to accept, relatively speaking, bigger than on a somewhat larger yacht.
Yeah. And how involved? Yesterday, Paris from Oceanco mentioned that they, as shipyard, had to give a presentation about how sustainable they are as a shipyard to the daughter of an owner, because she was a young lady and then she wanted to know everything about it. Do you see that the clients and also their children getting more involved in green solutions for their yachts?
Well, that discussion comes on many fronts.
Yeah.
First of all, it's EU regulation, and the banks will ask for it. If you read the ESG questionnaire from a bank, you think about closing down the shipyard because it's not made for shipyards, it's made for other businesses. Then we have the clients that are smart enough to understand that it's not only the yacht, but it's a process to produce the yacht. And then, quite frankly, we have our own kids and grandkids that are asking nasty questions. Because in the last years, the awareness of climate change and the need for a subsequent change how we live and how we produce has gotten so much bigger that the kids, my grandchildren, but also the children of our employees, they are asking questions. So that is a permanent topic that we have to live with, and we accept the challenge.
And you also have been one of the biggest supporters of the Blue Marine Foundation. How important is this foundation to you, and what have you done over the years with them?
Well, that's something very personal. I always like the sea. I like to be in the sea, and I used to go scuba diving. When you've seen a really great diving area with lots of fish, lots of marine life, and then you come to an area with coral bleaching, hardly any fish, you know you have to do something about it. And again, someone said this morning, it was in the movie about the Sail GP, he is optimistic because he sees how quickly the sea can recover. So Blue Marine's main goal is to create marine protected area with no fishing or very sustainable fishing, and that I think appeals very much. And I've done it personally together with my children. I invested 7 digits donation in that, and the biggest one was the creation of a marine protected area around Ascension Island, about the size of England, 440,000 square kilometers, where it's not a non-fishing environment, but the islanders used to make a good part of their living from selling industrial fishing licenses to countries like China, who come in and basically vacuum the oceans, kill everything with very little efficiency, or great efficiency to kill the ocean, but less for the environment. And we created a trust fund for the islanders to replace the income from selling commercial fishing license. They themselves still go on fishing, but 750 people on Ascension Island fishing a 440,000 square kilometer area doesn't do any harm. And it's really exciting to see how quickly an area rejuvenates with marine life. So that's my great.
And do you know how quick that is? Is that a year or 2 years? Or?
That takes a couple of reproduction cycles. So within 2-3 years, you see a noticeable area. Like you will find, for example, greater marine life around oil installations because there's no industrial fishing. Biggest cod you catch is up in Scotland around the oil rigs.
So if we go to the market a bit, and I think we do a lot of statistics on the market, and it seems like people are still selling boats, and the past few years have been, I think in early 2020 we didn't expect that we would have sold so many boats during the pandemic, after the pandemic. And has the past 2 years also been very good for Lürssen? And what can you say something about the strength of your order book?
Well, as you know, we never comment on the statistics other than they're usually wrong. We have a very good order book. We're planning to deliver, if all things go well, 4 yachts in 23, which also happens to be a result of the pandemic, because we all face delays in the production. But with things going back to normal, we're looking at 4 deliveries next year from 140 meter to down to 90 meter. So it'll be an exciting year for us, and we have been able to more or less refill our deliveries.
Yeah. And you mentioned with the supply chain challenge delays, is the supply chain still a big challenge, or is it getting better already?
It is getting better, but a simple thing like the Crestron system, you couldn't find suppliers for Crestron components because the chips weren't coming. The supply chains are getting a bit better, but a lot of the equipment out of China is very much delayed still, and it is getting complicated, but it is not as bad as it used to be in the peak of the pandemic.
Yeah. And another issue we hear is inflation a lot. Is that something that you have a lot of problems with as well? And do clients understand it, or are they very?
Clients do understand inflation. The numbers being published, I think we're running at 10% in Germany last month. What does help us to offset that is the dollar has strengthened by 10 to 15%. That makes up a lot of the inflationary pressure, but we've seen extraordinary price increases, not only in the raw material, which are coming down now, like steel, but especially in components and systems, main engines, air conditions, systems, and things like this, where we see more than the standard inflation as price increases.
Yeah. And what do you think of the market? You know, like I think I was in Fort Lauderdale. You were there as well a week, 2 weeks ago, and the American market is strong, and I think the brokers there were still very optimistic. But you sense already a little bit of a change with shipyards, that the number of inquiries and projects they were working on was not at the same level anymore as 12 months ago. Would you say that the market is getting a bit more normal than the crazy times of last year? Interestingly
enough, in a year with midterm elections, the ocean for Rotterdam is always quiet. Statistically, I was told this is been over the last 15 years in a discussion. So, but besides from the midterms, I think everybody is expecting a recession. The question is, how long will the recession last? 1, 2, or 3 years? Your guess is as good as mine. We will see a slowdown in inquiries. We've seen it ourselves. We have some very qualified clients that are still optimistic, they still want to move on. But the easy buy of a yacht is getting more complicated. Part of this is the result of increasing interest rates. We have, and our clients had possibilities to refinance their yachts at very, very good rates. That all has changed as much, and we'll see the results in the real estate market already, and I think we will see a result in the yacht market as well.
Yeah. And do you think it could be good maybe if there's a bit of a slowdown, so there's not so much pressure on the suppliers or on the whole market?
Well, that's a nasty question asking a shipyard. If I welcome a drop in demand, we all want. That's what we do. We build ships. We like to have big demand, build many ships. Is it good or is it bad? I think the industry as a total industry has not really reset after the pandemic to a normal working mode in its totality. So maybe a slowdown will help that the shipyards, the suppliers, and everyone can get back into a more normalized rhythm and capacity.
I think maybe we can see if the audience has any questions for Peter. Is there someone who wants to ask a question? Don't be shy.
I'll ask a question, Merijn.
Just
I don't want to take it away from it. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Difficult question, Peter.
Don't ask me if Germany will be world champion in soccer. I would doubt that.
Paolo from San Lorenzo mentioned in his presentation the question of image, and of course the drive towards sustainability is as much a question of the public image of yachting as anything else. The public image of superyachts is not a good one. When we read in the mainstream media about superyachts, it's always negative, but we don't really discuss this much amongst ourselves. Is Lürssen conscious of that image, and are you working to improve the wider image of superyachts?
This is going to be a question that will be permanently at the forefront, I think, in the coming years. We all most likely are aware of the demonstration on T a week before the Monaco Boat Show, where very specific clients on yacht owners have been singled out. Many of you may be aware that when Mr. Arnault sold his private plane, the groups that were tracking him on his plane said, oh, it doesn't matter, we know he owns a yacht, and he burned 400,000 liters of fuel in September alone. We have been fearing the public stipulation as a negative of that industry for a long time. We have been thinking about it. We don't really have a comprehensive response, other than the good thing is our clients are interested in and investing in the development of new technologies. It's a bit like the Formula One, has a bad image, but certain things get developed in Formula One that then get applied to other industries. I tend to believe that in the super industry, we are developing technologies that will help in the broader industry. We will have to face that, but at the same time, it's three areas. It's the production of the yachts, it's operation of the yachts, and is what can the industry, including the owners, do to do good for the environment. And I think we need to tackle all three. We are at Lürssen, as Bernard pointed out, we're gonna start installing solar panels for the internal power consumption. We have a comprehensive garbage system, and there's a lot of small items. It's not a big switch, it's many small items. Together with a lot of shipyards, we are in the Water Revolution Foundation. It's a very good forum to exchange knowledge how to improve the operations of yachts. Yes, every shipyard is very conscientious about the privacy of data, our own data and technology, but also those of clients. We have found a way to normalize data, so we are sharing a lot of information and technology. And we are working on not only reducing the consumption of fossil fuels for the propulsion, but also for the hotel in both areas. So there is a joint effort in the industry. And lastly, yacht owners fully understand and are aware that if they want to enjoy their yacht, the oceans must be in as close to pristine condition as possible, and therefore they are donating and undertaking a lot of actions to help keeping the oceans clean and healthy and alive. So yes, it is at the forefront. We are thinking about it. It's in discussions at various levels, but it's a criticism that we have to face.
And I'd like to add to that, there is also the SuperYacht Life Foundation, and Theo Honing is here as well, who is, are you the Secretary General there as well? Thank you. And I'm part of the board there as well, and I think that the part of the SuperYacht Life Foundation is to change the perception of yachting. And Theo, how Informa, what was that? They, basically, there's people are members of that, you contribute to the foundation, and Informa agreed to double the amount of revenue from the sponsors. Correct?
Correct.
Yeah. And I think with the SuperYacht Life Foundation, it's a long process because it's not easy to change the perception of yachting. It's not like, okay, we all tell how many people work there and everything. You know, it's a long-term process, but especially highlighting the positive effect. And now we are engaged in a PR campaign as well, which I think we will roll out soon, to really work with journalists as well, to explain them more about the industry, to give them a bit more a look behind the scenes. So I think that's a very important organization as well. And so if you want to become a member, talk to Theo.
What is important that the criticism is mainly voiced by people that just see one big picture of one yacht, big or small, or God forbid, of a yacht that starts up the engines and you see black smoke coming out of the exhaust system. It's important that we try to talk to these people and make them understand that we're not as bad as they believe we are, but at the same time, we should not forget that claiming how many jobs we create is not an excuse. And I think we learned it the hard way in Germany when everybody knows the car industry is very important in Germany. And that we hire hundreds of thousands of people is not an argument not for them to change. So that doesn't help us. And I think we have enough merits of good things that we have done and that we are doing, and the improvements that we are producing, that can stand on its own if we educate the non-industry journalists and the non-industry media to report at least objectively about our industry and not with a negative preconception.
Is there anyone else who wants to ask a question or have a comment? I see a hand in the back.
Yes, thank you, Ralph Ferrazwati. I saw an interesting question coming in. A lot of the emphasis about sustainability is on the propulsion, obviously, because it has huge impact. You kind of indicated that you also look at the whole picture, but specifically also interior outfitting. Did you also look at the carbon footprint of that?
You mean in terms of producing them or in terms of maintaining them?
It's not really stated, but I would say producing.
Okay. We have strict requirements from the regulatory side in terms of safety, especially fire safety. So there's things there. But for example, we have researched for 10 years now a teak replacement. We all know teak is a fantastic wood. As a child, I always liked teak, but we also know all the problems related to teak. So we have experimented for 10 years creating a teak replacement that looks and feels like teak, but is based on a widely available wood that doesn't need to be grown for 100 years. In terms of the hotel load and hotel consumption, we shouldn't forget on some of these yachts, the fuel used over a year, up to 50% will be used for hotel load, i.e. cooking, air conditioning, lighting, and so on. So I remember seeing an earlier question, are there any easy wins, quick wins? We're looking into that. What we need for that is data. And yes, we're looking at propulsion by being as efficient as possible, but we're also looking at waste heat recovery, insulating the glass. Sometimes it's just telling the owner, do you really want 19 degrees inside when it's outside? Explaining them the difference in power consumption between 19 and 21. And then very often the owner says, 21 is plenty cold, I don't need 19. So it's a discussion that we have on many levels, and I must say the owners are very good in choosing technology that is efficient from the start, but also looking at their own operational requirements and adjusting them to a level that is less power consuming.
Anyone else wants to ask a question?
Yeah, I have questions. Sorry, so okay. You were talking about Water Revolution Foundation, and we saw San Lorenzo earlier. A lot of shipyards at the moment are charging towards the same goal, and they're working hard in research and development and innovation. Will there ever be a point that there's collaboration between shipyards working toward the same goal? We want to see net zero boats. Do you think that will ever happen the way that it is with the designers through the Water Revolution Foundation?
Collaboration works best when everybody is very busy, and in tough times when everybody is facing a shortage of work, collaboration suffers. But in Water Revolution Foundation we found an organization which was founded mainly by the shipyards, or beginning by the shipyards, where we have an open exchange. And the open exchange goes beyond what we possibly would share the wider public, simply because, after all, you need to find the right partners, but we see a very great willingness to open up for the better of the product. So much so that I sit at the invitation of Henk together with him on stage on Monday.
That's Henk de Vries of Flagship. No, that's very good. I had one question I didn't ask you yet, was about the refit market, because I think what we see more and more as well is that Lürssen yachts return to Germany to be refit and maintained and serviced by Lürssen. Is that true? Is that a growing market for you?
I had a discussion lately. If you have a Gulfstream private jet, or a Global Express, or a BBJ on Airbus, or even a Rolls-Royce, or Mercedes, you bring these high-priced assets back to the original manufacturer to ensure that they are kept to a new building standard. And I never understood why clients would choose not to come back to the original manufacturer, especially when it's more than cosmetic refit or cosmetic maintenance. We have, by definition, the best in-depth knowledge of the product, and thereby can have the best maintenance. So we have been very fortunate and successful in really attracting a lot of our yachts coming back to us and do the maintenance or even conversion.
Yeah. But was it in the past because you didn't have the capacity to also look after the space?
It was more complicated. We bought Blohm + Voss in 2016, reorganized it, split it into pieces, and that now Lürssen Yachts and Repair Services in Hamburg has now a large number of docks, from small to very large, that can accommodate all yachts that would like to come. And I think it's important. We have a 24-hour hotline. We have a mobile team that can fly and do engine service in other countries, in other ports, on the ships. So we like to be the one-stop shop for clients, because we feel that the value of these assets demand, or should demand, that we as the original builder are there through the lifetime. I mean, we do some management of yachts, we do crewing and all of that for our clients if they so wish. So we have the total package for them. And refit and repair, of course, maintenance is a large part of that.
Very good. Before we round up, is there someone who wants to ask a final question? I see here one of my screens on Sunday is if an owner asks you today to build a nuclear yacht, do you think the technology is there, and how long will it take?
We are seeing a strong drive into the development of microreactors because it's a fundamental question. Germany is not taking a very good position there with regards to nuclear. It does have advantages as well. They are going to develop reactors, in my opinion, that would fit on a yacht, but as a yacht wants to cruise worldwide, and knowing in the current political environment, the problem would be that many countries would not allow nuclear-driven yachts into their ports. One of the issues, there have been nuclear-driven ships, not only Navy but also commercial. One of the issues they had is they couldn't come into many countries because they have a non-nuclear policy. That would make it complicated. So I have difficulty seeing that quite yet, but maybe in 15 years the technology is there, and it's if you're able to manage the full life cycle of the nuclear reactor, all the way to proper handling of the remains, then it may have a renaissance and come back.
Well, that's an interesting thought to end this conference with.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Peter. Everybody's very hungry right now and wants to go to lunch, so I'll keep this very short. I think, from my perspective and from my team, it has been an absolute pleasure to be here and to host the summit. I think it's very interesting for us to see also that you're all here and the commitment from everybody to really create a destination and to really get more yachts to this area. And I think we created a good basis again to go back to wherever we come from and to think and to continue work on and to see, and hopefully next year we see some change and see some progress. And I just want to say a big thank you to Hamza and Fabiana from the P&O Marinas team, and of course to all of you for coming here, and a big thank you to my team as well. So enjoy lunch, and I hopefully see you next year at the summit.
How are you? May I introduce you?
Yes, how are you? I'm good. Yourself?